Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on webcast1live.com and www.docandlefty.com, broadcasting every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. in our lavish Des Moines studios in the heart of downtown, bringing you the perspectives you love from the sides you hate. With me, back from his foray into all things vacation-oriented, is the Grand Master Flash of the Republican Party himself, Dr. Patrick McCroche. Doc, how's it going?
I am doing well, and I am excited about today's show. You know who we have on today?
I do know who we have on today, but why don't you tell the people who we have on today?
We have Dr. Lee Heap, libertarian extraordinaire, running for governor. We're going to be talking to her a little bit. She wrote an excellent article about Ebola, so we're going to talk about that here in a bit. She's also running for governor, taking on Jack Hatch and Governor Branstad, which is a formidable thing. We're going to also talk a little bit about why IPTV is just as bad as the old Russian-controlled TV stations. And I think that's going to be quite a fun show this week.
Do you suppose?
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? On the way here today, I was listening to a song, and I thought, I hope Lefty will do this a cappella for us one day on the show.
Oh, okay. You know, it doesn't take very much to get me to sing anything.
No, I understand. You Spin Me Round by Dead or Alive.
Oh, man.
You remember that
right
one?
Round?
Yes.
Like a record, baby?
Like a record, baby. So anyway.
I'll sing it. I'll William Shatner from,
You'll Shatner
from the 1970s.
You'll take a big shot at it.
You know, it's funny that you bring up Soviet control channels, Doc, because you've heard, I'm sure, that they're unveiling a new character on the oldest running cartoon of all time.
Simpsons?
No. In Russia.
What?
Russia
all
has
right. Sorry.
the oldest running children's programming of all time. Has been going on for like 50, 60 years, called like Good Night Children or something along those lines. And it was national news in Russia when they unveiled their newest character, this tiger cub from the far east of Russia, and all these politicos are signaling that Russian resurgence in their feelings about themselves because they've been beaten down so long by the capitalist pigs of the United States of America, wearing our red, white, and blue flag ties and doing our Reagan salutes to all and sundry. But I got to tell you, this past couple of days without you, I've felt the loss.
Well, you should.
I felt the loss, but I felt like our special guest host, our quasi-permanent at this point guest host, Fader, did an excellent job. We tackled a lot of cool things, I thought, last week, and it was a no conservative allowed zone, which I always appreciate.
Oh, yes, I know, because, you've been overwhelmed with conservatives your whole life. You and I have had exactly the same upbringing from different sides. I grew up in Harkin country. You grew up in Steve King country. You're the lone liberal. I'm the lone conservative.
I grew up in Steve King country before Steve King country was Steve King country.
Before Steve King was cool.
That could
yes, just say yes.
That temporal statement could be debated within an inch of its life.
I will tell you, DJ Maggie G is back there going, I don't think Steve King is cool.
Yeah.
She's giving me the look.
She makes a lot more sense sometimes than you do.
Absolutely. So yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know what else to say about that. But she's usually pretty quiet, so it's easy to make sense when you don't say anything.
Well, that's true.
Plus, we have a glass window where, we can't hear her anyway.
Right.
So, terrific. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about Ebola, because we are nothing if not a fun show. That's absolutely true.
Everything that we talk about is delightful and not scary at all.
No, I will tell you. Here's what you need to know about Ebola and how dangerous it is.
I would love, though, for our guest and Dr. Lee Heap to address some of those issues, if you don't mind, since she sat so patiently while we did our little mental throat clearing.
Let me do the setup. Then we'll bring Dr. Heap in, and she can talk about why basically Obama sucks. So, first of all, this is how dangerous Ebola is. Throughout Europe, there was a couple of times when it got hit by the plague, and the last time was the worst, and up to half of the cities were wiped out, and a third of Europe perished. And basically, you had a mortality rate of, statistically, about 42%. Ebola has a mortality rate of about 95%. And that depends on where it's at. A lot of times these villages just get wiped out. Nobody ever hears about it because they're all dead. The problem is, look at the devastation that it wrought in Europe that took centuries for the population to recover and to have their sustainability come back. We're now facing, for the first time ever, a multinational crisis that spans more than 7,000 miles, and at the moment involves more than 13 countries. That's what we're facing, and it's just now beginning. This guy down in Dallas, everybody back home in Liberia that he was even associated with is dead from this. He's holed up in a hotel room down in Dallas, and they finally put armed guards outside with instructions to shoot them if they go outside. This is what we're facing, and that's just one small scenario. This guy in Dallas took off from Liberia, landed in Brussels, spent 9 hours hanging out in the airport, sick as a dog. Now, I'm sure he just didn't sit there because if anybody who's traveled, you can't hardly sit in those chairs for an hour. So he's up, running around, using the bathroom, doing all this stuff. And when they talk about spread by direct contact with fluids, they don't mean I sneezed in my hand. Hi, how you doing? I sneeze in my hand. I open the door. I use the bathroom. I use the handle. I go back out. I don't wash my hands. And now you got it coming and going. That's what they mean by that. Now, the problem is they really don't know how long Ebola can exist on a door handle. Nobody does those studies because it's just plain dangerous. But we know it lasts long enough to be transmitted in that way. That's what we're talking about. Now, having set up that doomsday scenario, we're going to be back right afterward from these sponsors. We'll be talking with Dr. Lee Heeb. We're going to get her opinion on this. We're also going to hopefully have her article on our website here pretty quick. It's a very good one. I want to thank our sponsors, Petrosian Associates, Lubinas Law Firm, Halo Capital, and Des Moines Anesthesia. Follow us on Doc and Lefty, Facebook, Twitter, and Bing Plus, or Plus Google something, Google and Bing and the rest of it. We'll be back right after this break.
How can I help you?
Petrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. This is the Doc and Lefty program, and we are here with special guest and also the sponsor of the show.
Oh, my God.
Dr. Lee Heeb. Dr. Heeb is with us. She is, of course, you've seen her all over the state. You've seen her on this program. You've seen her on other fine programs of a radio and or video nature around Iowa. She's a Libertarian candidate for governor, running against those other two guys who haven't returned our phone calls or checked their emails. But Doctor, how are you? After the other doc. See, now I'm gonna call you. I'm going to call you the good doc, and I'm going to call you. How about this? In honor of that bloodthirsty dictator in Haiti dying, I'm going to call you Papa Doc and call you Baby Doc.
Good deal. Good.
Or which one?
See, we haven't even done anything. The liberals already on the warpath.
I just want to conflate you two to the most brutal regime in the Western Hemisphere in the last 50 years.
Conflate away, baby. I'm used to it.
So, Dr. Hebe, we were talking before the show. The campaign has picked up a little bit of traction. Why don't you tell us a little bit before I have you respond to the fear mongering of my partner over here?
Oh yeah, that's fear mongering.
How is your campaign going?
You know, I think it's going great. We've gotten a really good, good outreach. We need places to go and talk to people. We need advertisement things.
Well, because IPTV is not letting you do it.
Oh, exactly, exactly. The fix is in on that. But everywhere we go, people are interested in restoring their freedom. The message rings with people, and I think that's the big deal. I think people are very receptive. We just need to have the outreach.
Sure. Now, I guess, do we want to get, I was going to maybe think of a question. Do you want to?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I hear this a lot, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds because I know that you want to talk about policy, but I'm just a specific philosophical question that occurs to me every time, because the idea of taking back freedom or getting or fighting for our freedom or all those kinds of things. I mean,
what's that really mean?
Right. Well, that's rhetoric that exists everywhere in politics, right? So I'm not ascribing it to one person or another, and to a certain degree, politicians like to use that all the time for effect. But you hear it a lot from disgruntled conservatives saying something like, "This country doesn't look like the way that it used to look, or our freedoms are being infringed." So, those are attacks leveled against Democrats and liberals, which, to a certain degree, is a natural kind of attack, because they're talking about like taxing authority. You, as a libertarian, coming in kind of accusing both sides of doing that. So how specifically is freedom being, I don't want to say like assaulted, but freedom being...
You can use that word.
Okay, under assault by the Republicans and the Democrats, especially in this particular race.
Well, first of all, let's just talk about the state of Iowa. That's what we're talking about here.
Yep.
And we're the #1 corporate tax in the world. So I already know corporations that try and keep their profits overseas because they don't want to bring it back here. We're the highest in America, and America's the highest in the world, so we might have the dubious distinction of being the highest in the world. We're one of the top 5 taxes, personal taxes in the nation. We have high gas taxes. We have high property taxes. We're taxed to death in this state. And here's the real big thing. We're regulated to death. From the time you get up in the morning in Iowa, and this is the difference between, in my lifetime, let me tell you, in my lifetime I've seen this change, but my great-grandfather homesteaded here in 1871, and every year since he's been here, this government has grown, and government grows by regulating things. Every time it wants to regulate you, the government gets bigger. And let me tell you, you may not see it in Des Moines here. If you live in Des Moines, you may not see it because Des Moines looks pretty good. It's growing because it's a government town. Go outside of Des Moines and you'll see the collapse of all the small businesses down Highway 30 and all the little highways around the state, because we've lost our meat markets, we've lost our small chicken processors, we've lost our agribusiness, and we're losing them all the time. I was just talking to a guy here. He used to have a motorcycle shop business maybe you knew him. He has a motorcycle business in the town here in Des Moines. He was regulated out of business.
Was he a doctor?
No, he's a maintenance guy now. But regulations, the Competitive Enterprise Institute says regulations are costing the American people more than taxation, and I believe it, because I've seen it in my town, in my life. We are being regulated to death. And, some of this would be funny if it weren't so devastating to our businesses. An example I give of regulation. We had a nursing home that was cited because when the regulator went in, he found that although they had baked beans on the menu, they were cooking the beans on the cook stove. That took them to court. Okay, they had to get a lawyer. They had to pay their way out of that. Now that's ridiculous. That's money that did not go to the care of the elderly people in that nursing home, and we have to stop that. These regulations are not being done by your elected officials.
Just to interrupt, Dr. Hebe here for a second. That's the kind of crap that these people go through. You have a nursing home in gross violation over and over and over that gets a pass. But then you have one
This
that's
stuff.
providing all the services, and then because of the way the regulations are written, they're hammered like this. So
And-
sorry, Doc.
Well,
keep
that's
going.
okay, but that's true. I mean, I'm just citing that one example. You could pick a million. But the real point I'm making here is that we have, here you are, you're working, you got a family of 4, you may work 2 jobs to pay your taxes, and you're paying your taxes so you can send them to these unelected bureaucrats who are writing regulations that make it harder for you to get a job, and you don't get as much in your paycheck because guess why? Your boss has to buy corporate lawyers to be in charge, in compliance with all this stuff. He has to pay for bean counters and reams of paper. I mean, at some point, you cannot tax and regulate yourself into prosperity, and we are about to collapse. We're in deep trouble here. So that's the slavery is not about being beaten, quite frankly. It was a horrible situation. But slavery is also the primary role, the primary definition here. Slavery is when you give over all the fruits of your labor to somebody else, and then they tell you how to live. They give you what you need to live. And we're about at that point.
Well, let me ask you this, because there are certainly examples of a particular regulatory interpretation or a particular issue being silly. Right, there's plenty of examples of that. Maybe that can be those can be excised from a code of administrative rules and regulations. But are regulations per se an assault on liberty? Per se,
Yes.
yes.
And now,
Take that to
I'm
its-
not an anarchist, okay? And let me just point out, there's a Constitution. And
Right.
the reason we have the Constitution is to limit exactly this kind of thing. Technically, laws are created by one legislative body. At the federal level, it's the Congress. At the state level, it's the House of Representatives. Where we've lost our freedom is where we have allowed, and quite frankly, Medicare, Obamacare is a perfect example of this, where we've allowed unelected people to write regulations that carry the force of law.
Well, that's
the problem.
That's the fault of the legislature, though.
Well, it is, but it's an unconstitutional fault.
It's been
But it is what's limiting our freedom.
I'd argue with you on that one because the Supreme Court's upheld administrative bodies over and over and over again because the legislature creates them to assist the executive in enforcing the law that the legislature passes. I mean, there's no administrative body in this country, be it the EPA, the Department of Education, none of them, that are not created under the force of law by duly elected officials.
If we allow them to just write regulations willy-nilly, then you're right. There's no end to it. I mean, essentially, if you accept that they have the right to write anything they want to that carries the force of law, then there is no end to this, and we go down. I mean, you cannot. Quite frankly, I mean, in medicine, we've become like a black hole. We're putting out, a black hole got so heavy that no light escapes it. We're getting so regulatory heavy in medicine that no medical care is escaping us. And you can name, this is not just the funny story I just told about baked beans. This is from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night. And and my meat market guy, I've got a video on my website that shows all the regulations that are basically putting him out of business. I always say, if I've got a little video. In fact, I'd love to have this on your site. A state that won't let you make the choice. Freedom is making the choice about raw milk. If you won't get that choice, why would you get the choice to choose your health care or your education for your children?
Absolutely. Now we're here with Dr. Lee Heeb. She's Libertarian candidate for governor. We appreciate having her on our show, and not only that, being a sponsor of our show. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back. We want to thank all of our sponsors: Lubinas Law Firm, Petrosian Associates, Lee Heeb for governor, Des Moines Anesthesia, and Halo Capital. Visit us out at Doc and Lefty. You can watch her video here pretty quick. We're going to be getting that up soon. We'll be back right after this break.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here with our guest tonight, Dr. Lee Heeb, Libertarian candidate for governor. We're talking a little bit about her campaign. It's getting a little bit more traction, more penetration in the state. People are fairly, I think, sick of both sides in this thing.
Well, and the truth is out driving around, I think she's winning the bumper sticker wars.
Yeah,
I kind of do that. Kind of just count on stuff going down the road. On my way to my office, I'll count maybe 10 Heeb stickers. I don't see any Hatch or Branstad on for the most part.
Yeah, those guys are.
They're done for.
But speaking of,
if it were just bumpers,
yes.
we're speaking of being. That's a terrible, really insensitive segue. But we're going back to the Ebola thing that we started the show off with because I think it's important that we do have two medical professionals here in the studio,
and as I pointed out, somebody commented, we get enough Ebola news on the news, not from people in the medical field who have international experience. If you listen to the talking heads online, you're not going to get that.
Right. I mean, the CDC has been doing a pretty good job with this thing here in the States, though.
Yeah, but the people who are talking about it.
Right.
I mean, the CDC they're kind of quiet about.
Well, they came out. They said that the protocol is in place, that the training is in place, that it's not. Now, let me ask you both this. Okay, so it's dangerous. It's a highly infectious disease that has a high mortality rate in Africa because they don't have a modernized health system. That's fair, right? That analysis is undisputed. Am I right? Just say yes.
Well, that's part of it.
Okay, at the part right, but that's one. It's a lot more complicated than that, but just moving kind of quickly. When the CDC comes out to reassure people saying, in this country, the likelihood of a widespread outbreak, the way that we see it in Africa, killing a lot of people in the States, is very low. Is that something that we trust them to be able to do?
I'm going to let Dr. Heeb start with answer the question first, and then I'm going to give you my answer.
Well, I think the problem is that we in medicine often don't know what we don't know. And in this situation, we're in a new era. Now, see, the reason we're in this problem is due to transportation. This is a disease that's so deadly that it used to just wipe out the villages and it never transported. And then we paved the highways into the interior of Africa, and so now it got into the coastal cities, and then it started flying. I don't think fomites, which are the tabletops and doorknobs and things like that, are as big a deal as they are with some diseases. But let me just point out, we've air-evac'd a medical doctor and I believe a nurse back to this country. These are highly trained professionals that couldn't keep themselves from getting infected. So I'm not sanguine that we really are going to have this completely under control. And here's the other problem. Okay, it's what I said even before the first case showed up in Dallas. My point, and the reason and by the way, I've had people criticize me on my Facebook for using scare techniques in politics, and they're saying, well, I'm not going to vote for her. She just uses scare. No, I'm a doctor first. The news people came to me. I didn't start this. Okay, I just wrote an article. I just popped it up. But my point is that the problem with Ebola is, I said initially, just don't let people travel who have started their travel in endemic areas. Don't let them come in. It's a one-way stop. It's not stopping health people from coming over there, but you can't have people that are infected come back here. That would have helped us. We wouldn't have had any cases at that point. But now we got a new actor, a non-state terrorist actor. ISIS says they're going to infect people and they're going to ship them off to American planes. Now you can say that's just a you can roll your eyes.
Hold on, before you dismiss. Give me a second. Before you dismiss that, they convince people to strap bombs to themselves and run in.
Well, and
they pay the suicide bombers' families $25,000 apiece.
That's
what they do.
My
you don't believe it? That's been widely reported.
Let me tell you, what people don't realize is how bioweapons have been used and have been investigated and are being planned to being used. And Hafsami Rafsanjani said it very well years ago. He said, bioweapons are the poor man's atomic bomb, and we should consider this. $1,000 of destructive power of nuclear is 1 cent of biologic. Now, the worst case scenario is smallpox. It's not Ebola, but Ebola can be bad. And so let me just point out, the problem with bioweapons and bioterrorism, and there's lots of levels. There's biocrime, bioterrorism, biowarfare. We're not talking about major biowarfare here. We're talking about bioterrorism. Look at the devastation, not in human lives, but into the country, into dollars and cents, into disruption of a few cases of anthrax around 9/11. Remember that? Okay, you don't have to kill a lot of people to have a huge impact on our country. That's number one. And number two, the whole idea of this being containable kind of rests on this idea of transportation. But if you if they have, it won't take them much. All they have to do is go down to an endemic area, get a sick patient, bring them to someplace, and then continually affect people and keep having. It's kind of like making your yeast for your bread. You know, you keep a store in your kitchen and it keeps reproducing. That's the beauty of biological warfare, is it keeps reproducing. And then you just keep shipping people. It never ends. I mean, how do you stop that? I'm just asking. There's, until you get to the source, you don't stop that. This is not an easy question to answer.
The first thing, I mean, just to kind of go point by point, the anthrax thing was mainly from kooks that lived here in the country, making hay out of 9/11.
No,
the anthrax
that's not
attacks.
true.
That is true. The anthrax attacks.
Who do you think did it?
The anthrax attacks that went around to the different news folks.
Yeah, who do you think did it?
American citizens just being jerks.
Do you know that for a fact? Because they never caught the guy. The guy that they accused of doing it was from Fort Detrick. He was shown to be not the guy. Okay, they proved him not to be the guy. And let me just tell you, the first case, the first person to die in that attack just happened by coincidence. I'm not saying I know the answer either, but what you said is not known. We just don't know that. The first guy to die from the anthrax after 9/11 was the husband of the woman who rented Muhammad Atta his apartment. So if you think that's coincidental, maybe it is.
No,
I'm just saying you don't know that it's kooks.
Well, right, but there's no link. Fine, we don't. Neither one of us have any links.
Well,
I accept your apology. Anyway,
but her point is valid. Her point's valid. It doesn't take actual deaths from it.
Right.
It just takes the threat.
But what you guys are saying is that I guess the new supervillain, this fighting force of 30,000 people who are engaged on 4 fronts between Iraq and Syria
and winning
that's debated.
Well,
they've been losing territory. They've just now gotten into Kobani because the Turks don't feel like doing much.
Well, and that's true.
Well, you're arguing this from they don't have the will, they're not such bad guys.
No, I'm not saying that.
You can say what you want about that.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, first of all, they're not. This isn't Cobra Command. They're not some epic legion of supervillains here.
Well, and you don't need to be with bioweapons. That's the beauty of it.
Number two, they have demonstrated no capacity to, like actual capacity. They can say whatever they want. They've demonstrated no actual capacity to disengage from the war that they're in to do anything elsewhere. They are engaged in seizing territory in the Middle East, consolidating their power there, and that's what's being fought over, and that's where they're not being ultimately successful. So this idea...
Well, you're talking about strategy. I'm just talking about if they do this, the problems of containing it. And let me tell you one other...
Right now,
if they get their hands on a nuke, that's the same thing.
Very interesting debate. After the break, we're going to continue this because the two doctors here say, well, hold on, you can weaponize this and how you do it. And Lefty, who is also, we've always talked about the normalcy bias, is demonstrating the normalcy bias very well. We're going to be back to continue discussion right after this break. Thanks to all of our sponsors, including Lee Heap. We'll be back here in a minute.
I'm Lee Heap. I'm candidate for Iowa governor. Some of you don't know what a libertarian is, and you think we're kind of crazy and that we wear these things on our head. You know what's crazy? It's crazy to continue to vote for the two big parties who for years have taken special interest funds, have taken that money, have legislated in favor of their special interest buddies at the expense of all of us. You've heard of the great right-wing conspiracy. Let me tell you the great libertarian conspiracy. We want to take over government, shrink government, and leave you alone. When it comes to economic growth, the answer is really not that complicated. If you look around the country, the states that are doing well have no income tax and are deregulated. We, on the other hand, have one of the highest personal income taxes. We have the very top corporate tax in the nation, and we're regulated to death. Did you know that raw milk is outlawed in the state of Iowa? Really, raw milk? I mean, first of all, we're the heartland of rural agriculture. But here's the important point. Will a state who doesn't trust you to choose your milk trust you with buying a weapon? Will a state that doesn't trust you with raw milk trust you to choose your own health care? Will a state that won't trust you with raw milk trust you to educate your children? Am I truly free if I can't decide what to eat, what to drink, as long as I'm not harming another person? As a Navy officer, I took an oath to defend the Constitution. Now, there's a part of the Constitution that says, shall not be infringed. It's the Second Amendment. I have a concealed carry permit, but really, why do I need one? I have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, our right to carry firearms, is what supports all the other Bill of Rights. In November, have the courage to vote differently. Think about being more attached to your liberty and less attached to your political party.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I hope that our
After the transition.
I hope that our audience isn't in a mortal panic, running for their lives, because we've got I don't know.
Two very knowledgeable
doctors.
with international experience.
Two doctors that
lecture on bioterrorism
are saying
Yes.
things that run counter to every political observer that's been dealing with this stuff.
The political observer, because that's the problem.
Every international expert, everybody talking about this stuff, and terrorism experts who have discussed the threat of ISIS being more of a localized threat than actually having the capability of exporting anything, especially to this country, they must be all on the take.
Well, they're not talking about bioweapons. And if you want to talk about, I can't remember her first name, Decker, D-E-K-K-E-R. She is the bioweapons advisor to the European Union. And I haven't heard her talk about this, but trust me, she doesn't believe this about any other thing. And I just want to make another point. We have a history of absolutely minimizing bioweapons. We missed, by the way, did you know that we missed when the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh poisoned the people in Oregon? We sent CDC experts out there. Up the yin-yang, we expected that. And we blamed it on the poor short order chef in the restaurant. And it turned out the only reason we figured out it was a bioweapons attack, I mean, it was a little biocrime. It wasn't a huge international incident. But the only reason we figured it out is there was a power play in the Bhagwan's organization, and so he ratted out the nurse. That's really the only reason we figured it out.
I'm not saying that they're not, I'm not diminishing,
Front.
I'm not diminishing how bad it could be. I'm saying specifically, because it was brought up about ISIS, that the capability of ISIS right now, they're not engaged in that particular thing. That's my argument.
Well, you can say that they're not motivated and they won't do it and it's just a threat. That may be true. But don't tell me they don't have the capability. All it takes is one guy to go get a patient out of Liberia, take it to a room in France, and then start infecting people. It doesn't, see, that's the beauty of bioweapons.
Get on a plane.
Yeah, or get on a plane himself. All it takes is somebody with a will. And see, the problem has never been, all you need is high school biology to do most of this stuff. The problem has never been the science and technology. The problem has been getting the agent, the biologic agent. You know, we have now Ken Alibek. That's not his real name, but he used to be the Soviet Union's #2 guy in Vector. And he told us about all these bioagents they had.
And Vector is what carries the bug.
Yeah, and Vector is the organization. He was the offensive bioweapons program in the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union fell, all those bioweaponeers vanished, probably taking their little buddies with them, their little bugs. People in this country that said, oh, we didn't have WND in Iraq, and we didn't have, they don't think of bioweapons being WND. But trust me, if smallpox ever gets out, and this is one of the reasons I even know about this, is because I've been studying this because of my fear that smallpox is held in 2 labs. One is in Russia and one is in the CDC. If that ever but we don't know where those bioweaponeers from the Soviet Union took other samples. We know about those 2. We don't know about other labs. We suspect it was in Iraq. We found things labeled in Iraq, and we have Dr. Germ, I can't remember her Arabic name, but their bioweaponeer chief. That is if that'll make Ebola look like a kindergarten play game. That's 60% fatal. And in Dark Winter, which was an Army war game, it was global in 2 weeks. this is global in a few weeks, and but this doesn't kill us. It doesn't kill. It's not airborne.
Right.
That's the thing that's going to save us on this.
And part of the thing you need to remember about this, and I'm not going to argue
seriously.
whether or not ISIS has the will to do it.
Right.
They have the ability to do it. Because keep in mind, this guy came from Liberia to the U.S. in order to get treatment. He wanted to live. Think if he was convinced that if he died doing this, he'd get 72 virgins. For crying out loud, this guy went to a hospital with Ebola and they sent him home. They sent him home.
Well, and did you see
when he went back and said, listen, I think I have Ebola, did everybody go, hey.
It was his nephew that finally called the CDC.
Yeah, that's right.
It was not him.
Did you see? That's the scenario.
And even after the CDC got involved, my favorite part of this whole thing is again, hope it's not going to be tragic for these guys. Did you see the picture, the aerial photo of them cleaning his vomit off the?
Yep, he used a broom.
Yeah, he was using a broom and a hose or pressure washer.
I didn't see any kind of protective.
None.
No gloves. I didn't even see gloves on this guy. So you're sitting there going like, that's how it spreads.
And later they brought the guys in hazmat suits for the apartment. But this poor dude is out there.
He's out there doing it in the wind.
Yeah.
So part of the problem with this.
Well, didn't he lie on something? He lied to get into the country in the first place, didn't he?
He did, but you know what? He had a passport that still showed that his origin.
He's from here, right? He's an American citizen.
He's an American citizen, but his passport but his passport was stamped in Liberia.
Right. And so we knew he came from an endemic.
The part that, and maybe we'll talk about this, we're running a little bit short of time here. Well, I would like to talk about how come we're not instituting the same kind of protective procedures with this Ebola outbreak, because the World Health Organization has been much more emphatic about this is going to be a worldwide thing. And the CDC has not said anything along those lines. They've said there's potential. We really don't have to worry about it here in the U.S. But the bottom line is look at this hospital in Dallas. That's, in Dallas, they're all fairly advanced hospitals who went, go on home.
Well, that's that was something different.
So maybe we should talk about this on this next segment about why we're not instituting these kind of procedures that we instituted with SARS and H1N1 and all the other outbreaks we've been having. We're going to be back right after this break. I want to thank all of our sponsors, Dr. Lee Hieb at Hieb, HIEB 2014.org. Bertroshan Associates, Labinas Law Firm, Halo Capital at DesMoinesInterestsRates.com, Des Moines Anesthesia PC. Follow us at Facebook, DocAndLefty.com, Twitter, Google+. We also want to wish DJ Ginny A getting better at home. She's got a little strep throat going on. So hopefully it's not Ebola. We'll be back right after this break.
Bertrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertroshandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertrosh and Associates.
Welcome back, everybody. We don't have a whole lot of time left. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yep.
Well, I think we ought to get back to a little bit to why we're not protecting. Why we're not instituting these things.
I'll give you a layperson's perspective on this. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong,
and we will.
I know you will. SARS and H1N1 were airborne.
Correct.
Making them more dangerous than... Now, Ebola is dangerous, obviously. It's one of the more virulent. Am I correct? Is that the right word?
Deadly. Yeah, it's more deadly.
It's more infectious too, right?
Yeah.
But it's not as easily spread as those other two. Is that correct?
It's not spread or airborne, but we're sure seeing it go like wildfire from person to person.
Well, yeah, because if you look at now, this is from a psychiatry perspective. So I don't have the background Dr. Ebe does in these issues, but if you look at from a human perspective, from a psychiatric perspective, touch is one of the most, in fact, is the most important sense that we have. You can deny a kid his sight, his hearing, whatever, and they'll develop normally. You deny a kid the right to be able to touch. You deny that, the kid, you can't ever fix that, ever. Ever.
Yeah,
and we have to touch patients.
And you have to touch patients. Look at how we shake hands. I shook hands with your friend I met earlier today. And the problem is it's a 2 to 10 day incubation before you know you're sick, during which time you can spread that. It's just, it's like HIV, right? It's sexually transmitted through fluids. But the most virulent that you are with HIV is in the initial infection.
Well, now
the tests don't show it.
And let me ask you this though, because what you hear is you can't transmit it unless you're symptomatic. That's what everybody says.
But you get symptomatic fever. I mean,
I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Again, I think it's by the time you start getting febrile, and it seems to be very variable. In some people, it's 2 days. The problem is, let's say you get on the plane and you don't feel sick, and you and I and probably all of us have had the experience where, you come down with a flu-like illness or the cold or something, and within 8 hours you're sick. But if you're on one of these long transatlantic flights, that's not too comforting. I mean, I think you can that doesn't keep it from being transported. And I think that the issue of, they say that you can just use universal precautions mean you wear a mask and gloves, and then you very carefully take them off. If that worked, why did these doctors get it?
And that's part of it.
And
one of them
hazmat
had taken his gloves off because it was so hot, had taken his suit off. But the nurse that just came over had been using full precautions and still got it. And the part of the problem with this is, keep in mind, this is a virus.
You mean the one from Spain that you're talking about, or
the American nurse? It wasn't an American nurse.
There is an American nurse, but I don't know the rest of the story.
Well, the American nurse they just got done bringing over had been following the precautions and still got sick. And the problem is, it's a virus. So how viruses have very similar presentations. So how do you know it's Ebola and not a flu or the common cold?
Right.
That's what the problem is. So, you have to sit there and take some reasonable precautions.
And this,
Europe's done it.
I can't remember when the last big outbreak of Ebola was, but this is also a different strain. So,
of course it is.
So,
because
unfortunately,
because viruses are like that.
Mutate. Yeah. So this is also a different strain. But I guess the issue is, so this has not declared itself yet. I think within a month, we'll kind of get a better picture of what's going on. Right now, I think there's a lot of unknown. And here's the other thing to say. There are only 4 hospitals in the nation that have true biologic isolation units. Most hospitals, and most people don't know this, you go into most hospitals, there's air circulation, and we don't do a great job. I mean, look at the problem of spreading any organism. Methicillin-resistant Staph aureus was the favorite one. Pseudomonas. You wash your hands, you do all these different things. It still spreads from patient to patient in the hospital.
Right.
And so here we have something that's much more deadly, and we don't want to spread it. But if we start overwhelming, and this is my point, if we start overwhelming our system, these patients are not going to be in these highly specialized units with specialized people to care for them. They're going to be in your hospital, in my hospital.
Am I wrong in saying the last couple of days, I thought that I'd seen something that the Dallas hospital did go locked down, didn't they?
I haven't
seen that. I didn't see it last night.
I thought that maybe I must be confusing that with something else.
When everybody says here's what I fault the CDC for.
Well,
I fault the CDC for saying, it's okay, we have it under control, nothing to see here, move along, move along. This, and they said, we think no more than 100 people are contaminated. Really? This guy got, like Doc said, got sent home, which means you could just picture this. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He's signing in at the talking to the sign-in clerk, and he's chewing on the pen, and he's talking to other people, and he's sitting around throwing up, and he's in the waiting room, and then he finally goes to the back.
That's just, absolutely.
I mean, how many people pass
And we get
by?
back to, you asked a question earlier, whether you can trust the CDC or not. I have a story. I'm out working for...
Is it related to this?
Yes.
Is it relevant to this?
Yes. I was out working to You know, my brother Joe wants me to ask your credentials, medical credentials. I told him I wasn't going to be productive. If you keep on, I'm going to ask. So
I don't need medical credentials to cross-examine you, buddy.
Yeah,
you can tell your brother that too.
Yeah, all right. Well, you just did. So I'm working for people in Washington D.C. I don't want to put any names out there, and HIV was just becoming a huge deal. Just becoming a huge deal. It was early 80s, middle 80s, and I'm looking at these papers that I shouldn't be looking at. And the day that the CDC came out and said, listen, we don't think HIV is a bloodborne illness, I saw a piece of paper from the CDC, talking about 3 DC area nurses that had contracted HIV when they were sprayed in the eyes with blood.
Yeah.
That's why you can't trust the CDC. They're there to keep the population under control. They're there to keep panic from spreading. And their secondary job is to find out the bugs that are going to kill us. Don't get me wrong, that's what they do. But they're a political organization, right, and they have a very specific bureaucratic job.
So who do we trust, buddy?
That's what I'm telling you. You can trust Lee Heeb over here. You can trust me because we tell it how it is. Right?
You want another example of the CDC?
Go for it. But you see how it relates. You can't trust what they're telling us because the bottom line is their job is to protect us, but it's also to keep us in line. It's also to sit there and prevent panic from spreading with this. The bottom line is this is a dangerous organism. Simply because it's spread by touch and not airborne doesn't mean it's less dangerous. It's just a different transmission. Go ahead, Doc.
Well, I was just going to say, we just had this whistleblower that came out on the CDC with the vaccines. At the time that the CDC was saying, absolutely, there's no evidence that vaccines cause autism, we have transcripts from the AAPS has transcripts from the guy, one of the senior people in the CDC saying privately, until we sort all this stuff out, I'm not letting my only grandson have these vaccines. Now, if, don't tell me you're sure and then say this privately, okay? So the problem is that, and this is why we need to get control of our health care again, is that you are the most, my only goal and your only goal for yourself is health. But when you have a political organization that's in charge of your health, they have other goals. And unfortunately, the guys that run through the CDC and rotate through the FDA are also big pharma guys. And so they have other agendas, profit being one, and not having to stand up in front of Congress and explaining mistakes. Bureaucrats don't like that. So they have other agendas. You and I only care about our health. So yeah, I'm not sanguine about what they say.
We've come up on another break. We're going to be back with Lee Heeb right after this. Do you want to talk more about your campaign, or do you like this Ebola stuff? Because your eyes light up.
It's kind of a break from my campaign, and I do want to tell you what's on the State Department website because that's just too funny.
All right, we'll be back. We'll have Dr. Heeb back here in a minute. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please visit our sponsors. Heeb2014.org, RetroshanAssociates.com, Blue Beaton's Law Firm, Halo Capital, and Des Moines Anesthesia at 574-6442. Please visit us at docandlefty.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and at some point we will have a new blog up because we've promised, at least I promised 2 weeks in a row and never delivered.
I promised several more than that.
Yes. So we'll be back. I'll get out the wet noodles and give Lefty a beating this weekend. All right. We'll be back right after this break.
And I will take it.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for the for the last 10 minutes of the show. We're here with our special guest and sponsor of the show, Dr. Lee Heeb, Libertarian candidate for governor, running against Terry and Jack. I'm just gonna call him that for the rest of the month. Jack and Terry, Terry and Jack. They sound like a bad 70s duo.
One of the things I found out by going to Dr. Heeb's website is there's like 5 people running for governor.
Yeah, but you know, this is a joke. And I have to tell you honestly, there are 2 people running for governor. It's me and Branstad. It's the Branstad Borg. They've assimilated all those other
my
people.
God.
Yeah.
I mean, God. Just another reason I like Lee Heeb. Just an old-time nerd sitting here talking politics.
I gotta say, I resent you bringing up the Borg on the show because Doc and I have had this long-running feud about whether TNG is better than you like Deep Space Nine, don't you?
I don't like Deep Space Nine at all. I like TNG. No, Voyager.
Voyager, that's what it was.
Yeah,
TNG was the best Star Trek. Everybody knows it. I have a warm place in my heart.
Only thing I got to say is 7 of 9. End of debate.
Well, anyway, there's been a ban on Borg talk for this entire life of this show. But you're our guest. I have to be hospitable. I could talk about that for a long time.
You notice he changed it to pitiable at the end because he was just going to go straight hostility. I was going to be hostile, but I'm going to be hospitable.
Hospitable.
Pity is in there.
No, I'm interested in that take because Governor Branstad is. I mean, would you say that he's the main Iowa institution? Like, compare him and Grassley, our 2 longest-serving politicians at this point.
Yeah,
Branstad and Grassley.
I mean, the governor will have been in longer than Saddam. You know, here's the issue. It doesn't matter if you're Sister Teresa.
I love it.
What a smackdown.
It's time to take the gloves off here. But because people need to wake up, and I think people of Iowa have done a great disservice, and I don't think they realize that they've lost control of their electoral process. Because when you've been in power for a long period of time, you can consolidate power and you can own other things. You know, I mean, look, Hatch's business partner is Branstad's biggest donor. Let's just face it. Hatch isn't really running. We were down in Burlington at the debates. We were doing a little bit of guerrilla advertising outside of the debates, so we were actually there. You know, I was telling you earlier, I'll ask Doc, but, you know, in Trivial Pursuit, there's a question, what's the rarest mammal in North America? Used to be the black-footed ferret. Now it's a Hatch campaign worker, you know. But you go down, and there was not one sign. There was not one evidence of them making Burlington's a Democrat town, and there was not one evidence of any campaign going on down there. Now, to me, I mean, the guy that's been helping me, who's a long-time political, he said he'd never seen anything like that in 40 years. It says to me that there was a deal made, and you know, it's kind of like, now again, I hate to use the Borg, but it's basically saying, come on, Jack, you know, you're not going to go anywhere on yourself. Just do this for me. Just be a face so that I can showcase my ideas. I think that's what's going on.
But everybody,
I can't prove that, but you know that's
unemployment's down. Taxes have been cut. Mustache.
You know what they
right?
did? Well, this is what they did. They cut the property taxes and they increased every other tax out there.
And most people didn't see a property tax decrease. I'm going to tell you,
it's interesting. The Democrats were arguing about that when it happened, but then it went through anyway.
Well, let me tell you,
there was no real issue.
Big government is supported by the big lie. And the big lie here is you can't cut taxes and have a $1 billion budget increase. End of story. I mean, anybody that thinks you can do that is also in another parallel
even the friend of the show, Tom Shaw, was talking. We came on the show and said, well, you know, hey, we're cutting the budget by only increasing it 3%.
Yep.
No. Now, I like Tom a lot, but it was everything I do to not shout at him. 3% increase is still an increase. 3% increase is still an increase.
As government grows, the private sector shrinks and everybody gets poorer. It's as simple as that because government doesn't produce what makes you better in life. It produces taxation and regulation. And here's the other thing. I mean, we've got 2 big parties that they've taken special interest money, they've grown government, they've regulated in favor of their special interest buddies at the expense of all of us. And I generally, I used to go around the state, I still go around the state, and when I talk to people, I say, here are the 4 things we need to do: get rid of Common Core, get rid of Obamacare state exchanges, get rid of these unelected regulatory boards, and push back the federal government. But, and I tell people, mostly time I say, I'm not here to convince you to be a libertarian. I just want you to be more attached to your liberty and less attached to your political party. I got to tell you, the more I'm into this, the more I think the only way we're going to get our freedom back is to take those 2 big parties and move them on, get them to collapse, because we cannot.
The Republicans are pretty close.
The Republicans are teetering.
Right. Well,
let me ask you. I have 2 questions that I want to ask you. First of all, do you think that IPTV is in that pocket of the Republicans?
Oh, well, they're in the pocket of the government because 44 to 49% of their budget
do you
comes
think that's
from
why they
the
didn't
government.
let you on the show?
Oh, sure.
Right.
I got to tell you, Jake Porter, who's running for Secretary of State, has a beautiful ad going out, and it's about Big Bird, because IPTV owns Sesame Street, and Big Bird is denied. He's sent an invitation to become a part of the Good Bird Club, but then he's denied because his feet are too big. And objective criteria, and that's basically what they told us. Here are the objective criteria. We're certain, Dr. Heath, that they what does it benefit anybody by not having other ideas represented? How does it benefit Iowans? It doesn't. It benefits the people in power. And so it's very clever. When you're in power, you just make rules that keep, the things I can prove a lot of things. And one of the things I can prove is that Branstad voted to pay these corporate lawyers $337 an hour to write rules that IPT is going to write, to make exclusionary rules that are fairly new. Why do we do that? Okay.
Well, if there are other people running for governor, they're not being invited. John Narcisse is not
invited. Right, none of us are being invited.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys thought about just setting up your own venue, doing your own debate?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we haven't. It's been kind of busy, and I don't think that's going to help us much. But the point I'm going.
Well, you could come on Doc and Lefty.
We could sponsor it.
We could do something like that.
Well, ask Jonathan.
Oh, geez, now she's putting us down.
But I'm going to
apparently we don't meet her criteria.
Yeah, well,
oh my God!
Well, let me tell you
about turning on a guest.
I'm not surprised because we don't meet a lot of people's criteria. It's the law of averages, my man, and we're on the short end of it.
I'll be more than happy to go. But here's the point. Let me just tell you. Jonathan's kind of been campaigning against me. If you're really in this to win, why not campaign against the big guy? Okay, so that makes me wonder who he's. If the Borg has assimilated him.
I don't know about. I mean,
I don't know. Okay, no. I don't know. I mean, he's a nice guy, but why is he doing that?
It's not about him being nice.
And let me just.
You remember that his balloon caught fire and went down. Well, or something happened. You and I both knew why it went down. John started to stop talking and kiss his wife. Couldn't keep the hot air up.
That's right.
So that's why he's running.
We can say that because that was a couple years ago, and you told that joke to his face. He didn't like it. He didn't like it then. I don't think he's going to like it now. I thought it was funny.
Well, I put it on Facebook.
It was great.
Let me tell you why I'm a little suspicious. And I don't mean to sound like I'm paranoid, but just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
That's true.
The last candidate, Henninger, conveniently has an H in his name. Kind of get confused with Hofling. It's called ballot dilution. Here's a guy whose website, he can't spell governor. Okay. Here's a guy who did not get signatures to get on the ballot. The Secretary of State allowed this guy to be on the ballot. How? He had an internet convention.
Yeah.
Okay. The Libertarian Party couldn't do that. I mean, at least we were not aware of that being an option, but they accepted this kind of a little, I'm sorry. It's just too pat. I think there's a lot of things that point to let's make sure that we don't have any real challenge here. But I'm just saying, I can't prove that. I'm just saying it's not a fair playing field when you control the media. And there's no question about that.
And with that, we're going to close out the show. Doc, you want to say anything to your supporters or listeners?
I'm glad that the media here is open, and I'm glad actually to speak about some medical topics and actually have Doc on my side.
Fair enough. We are
kind of fun.
I'll tell you what, though, I at least am bought and paid for. I at least am bought and paid for.
Well, and
I don't know who's writing the checks, but they keep coming.
The truth is if somebody would write me a check, I would take it.
Yep.
Please.
Yeah. We're prospectively bought and paid for.
Yes.
We're looking for an emperor. I was going to make some kind of weird Latin reference. We're looking for a Marcus Aurelius to come and patronize the show because we're just
absolutely. Well, we have Marcia Aurelius.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. You got anything else to say? We got another 10 seconds.
No,
you've done great. So thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to us. Have a great time here on the show because we do have a great time here. In fact, when I'm in a bad mood, the show lifts me up. When Lefty's in a bad mood, the show lifts him up.
Yep.
And then he goes back outside and understands that his entire life view is wrong yet again. So
it's a weird existence.
It is a weird existence. So thanks to Dr. Lee Heeb for coming on the show. We appreciate it. Don't forget to hit our website, Heeb2014.org. HIEB, Bertrosian Associates, Lubinas Law Firm, Des Moines Interest Rates, that's Halo Capital, Des Moines Anesthesia, 574-6442, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, everything
Our wonderful
else.
Producer,
DocandLefty.com, DJ Matty G.
Thank you, Webcast One Live, for the studio. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.